This is the second video in the series about corruption. And in this video, I would like to focus on a few different things. In the first video, we've looked at the concepts of corruption as a concept, corruption as a pathology, which is a disease, like a virus, like a cancer. Corruption has got impact, and it also impact on other systemic issues like poverty, development, and corruption consists of different manifestations, many different manifestations, and corruption has got a co-producer or consists of co-producers because it's a systemic term. It's also a complex term. So in this video, I'm going to explain the developmental aspect that's been through the lens of 6 developmental dimensions of development, which I borrowed from Coetzee and also Mr. Akhoff. Now, Mr. Coetzee and both Akhoff worked at the MIT, and they developed the 5-dimensional approach towards development. And they come to the conclusion that corruption obstructs the 5 dimensions of development. And development, as I've said already in a previous video, is a systemic concept. Now, corruption is the breakdown of integrity, breakdown of the wholeness of character of a system, or the original purpose of a system. Although one can debate what is the original purpose of a system, to contribute to the better and the good in society. So corruption breaks down character of people, of society, moral fiber of society. It distracts from giving people inspiration and hope. Now, corruption is a serious problem, and in this 5-dimensional concept of development of Coetzee and Akhoff, I would like to focus on why development or why corruption is serious, what they call a secondary serious problem. Now, the premises of development as a systemic concept by Coetzee, formerly an Asian person, is that development consists of 5 phases, and I've added one to that. And first of all, development is based on economics. The purpose of economics should be to create wealth for everybody. Now, that is not referring to equality in terms of output, but in terms of the opportunity for creating wealth, so that people with different talents and different productivity levels, different skills, at least can have the opportunity to advance in society, to increase their income, and to increase their living standards, to afford services. Now, that should be the purpose of any economic or any society, or for that matter, a person or institution. But let's talk about society, about a specific country. So if people are deprived and discriminated against in terms of input being prevented, then people will develop a resentment and they will be excluded from receiving loans for entrepreneurship, for example, from receiving tax breaks in order to start a business, for example. So no discrimination should be allowed in terms of skin color. No preference should be given to people just based on skin color either. And no preference based on race, ethnic, tribal group, nationality, and so forth, in terms of the 4 factors of production, namely land, capital, labor, and entrepreneurship. Now, the second dimension of development is politics. Now, the purpose of any political system should be to create a common concern. In order to create a common concern, everybody should participate. Everybody should be feel free, and the freedom of choice, and movement and association, to participate, to say what the needs of society is, and to say what type of needs should be met in a specific community, in a specific village or municipality area, or in the country. So if some people are what we call more equal than others, then some people will be excluded, and that will contribute to be, and that some people will feel discriminated against, and that their needs are not being met. Now, the purpose of the third dimension of any development should be to create knowledge, understanding, insight, and wisdom. And that is important in this knowledge-based society, where we are flooded with information, but not a lot of insight. Where we are being fed by social media, but without any much meaning to it, to make connections in terms of meaningfulness, and to take accountability for knowledge that is most of the time not consequential. So all knowledge should be consequential, meaning having certain consequences, and people should take accountability for that. Then knowledge should also provide the person to provide a synthesis and interpretation, except just for the meaning, and also technology is part of that. So this is also very important in terms of our educational system in a world that is suffering from abuse by intellectuals that doesn't take accountability for their ideas, compared to an engineer that built a house or a bridge, and if it collapses, it's a failure. While on the other hand, intellectuals, the elite, they propagate ideas like socialism, and they don't take accountability for that. Marx, for example, have propagated that, and he didn't think about the outcome of socialism, that failed miserably, and have never been a success. So in this context, there's also a difference between data, knowledge, and also wisdom and insight. Then, and we use technology these days in social media as a tool to increase trade, the other dimension of the developmental scale. Now, we will later come to the different obstructions to development in which corruption then becomes a secondary outcome. But I would like just to continue the 5 dimensions, plus the one that I propose as part of development. The 4th dimension is aesthetics. It means the beauty, to see the beauty in something. Look at the flower and realize that it consists of the 5 elements. Water, 72%, earth, about 12%, and then ether, also space, and then fire, like the sun. And all of us represent that. Human beings are, for example, consist of 72% water, and about 12% earth elements. So it means that we must nurture and we must be grateful for representing the 5 elements that are the building blocks of the universe, and they must all be in harmony. The same applies to having the need for creating a beautiful workplace, a beautiful place to live in order to be innovative and creative. So that is the 4th dimension of development. Strive for beauty, and that's extremely important in order to give people hope for the future and a better society. Then the 1st dimension is ethics. Ethics come from the Greek word ethos, that means character. And ethics is a personal thing, as I've explained in the first video about corruption. And ethics is personal, and morality refers to the values or principles and behavior of a group of people in terms that coincide in terms of sociology and study of people, group behavior, where we sometimes see mass psychosis of people because of the behavior of the group, as we have seen during COVID-19, where people fear and were locked down, and the result of that. Then the purpose of any ethical system should be to create peace and harmony, and to reflect on the aesthetics. The purpose of any beauty should be to create hope and inspiration, as I've said already, and motivation. Although motivation is based on the individual, somebody else cannot motivate you. Then the 6th dimension of development is spirituality. Now, spirituality is different from ethics, morality, and religion, in the sense that spirituality is across all different religions. It's across, and it's beyond any ideology. It is beyond any race, culture, tribal, ethnic group, culture. It is beyond all separation and polarization of any kind, in which we are all united in unity. As they say in yoga, purpose is to create unity, oneness. So spirituality is not linked to a specific religion, because religion is exclusive, and spirituality is inclusive. Spirituality is also not only beyond boundaries, but spirituality is also about mindfulness, create unity, create peace, create enlightenment, create harmony, to create blissfulness, to connect with the 5 elements of water, earth, fire, ether, and space, in order to fulfill your God-given purpose in life. So spirituality is a very important concept and a very integral part dimensions of development as the sixth one that I would like to add, because that creates the wholeness and the completeness of ethics. One cannot be really be a real or whole person just being ethical or being moral, but only by being spiritual. And to connect with other people, plants, animals, insects, because whatever we do, we are connected, and that has a ripple effect on the rest of the universe. And we should celebrate that, and we should appreciate that in humbleness. This is how ethics, morality, and spirituality are basically connected. So the purpose of spirituality should to create one unity and mindfulness and bliss, as I've said already. Now, go back to the we have looked now at the six purposes of the six dimensions of development. If we look at the economic system and people are excluded, then we get what we call first order obstructions of development, like deprivation, like discrimination. So that is a problem, because that's not the original purpose of any, or should not be the original purpose of any economic system. And then if in a political system, if we can't create a common concern, and some people are excluded, some people are higher than the law, higher than, not equal to other people, like presidents normally is being excluded from certain criminal activities during their presidential positions, like in Namibia, and not only referring to dictatorships, but also to many other countries that the wealthy and the elite abuse their positions of power and money in order to be above the law. And that coincides then with corruption. Now, if a political system, everybody is not inclusive and have the same rights and are all equal before the law in terms of fundamental human rights, freedom of movement, speech, association, and choice, then you can get a political system where people are excluded, where they can't participate, and that create an authoritarian style of leadership on a political system. And we also see that one of the global trends is the executive is increasingly overpowering the legislative and judicial. That is a global trend, as well as in Namibia. So political system is very important in order to bind people together, to create that unity, to create that purpose, so that the needs of people are being met. But this is not the case in the world. Politics and political ideology and specific ideology is not based on science. It's not based on the reason. It's not based on logic. It's based on the fallacies of politicians to stay in power, because the purpose of any politician, and especially a career politician, is to stay in power for as long as possible. And therefore, they will abuse power to create centralization, authoritarianism, sometimes dictatorships, and to hang on to power for as long as possible. And that is linked to corruption, or that is corruption. Then the third dimension in terms of creating knowledge. If some people are excluded and not have access to information, then they will not be able to participate they will become, if they are not have the opportunity to study and quality education, be exposed to that, they will also become obsolete in their positions, in their jobs, and they will not be able to earn a living. And this is the case in many countries where people are discriminated against based on their skin color, and not based on merit, not based on outcome. What should be the way that how people should be treated for positions, but instead people are being preferred by political parties based on their political affiliation, what we call patronage. Then the terms of the aesthetics and beauty, some people are selfish. They only look after themselves and their own family, and that contributes to corruption. Other people are selfless, and that is also a problem, because one should also appreciate and gratitude and respect for yourself. Now, both selflessness and selfishness can create what we call nihilism, where the norms of society are being abandoned, and that can contribute to anarchy. And that is now selfishness and selflessness are both obstructions to the development of a person and as well as a society. Then the purpose of any of the dimension of development that is focusing on ethics. There are many theories of ethics and morality, but one of the biggest obstructions to peace and harmony is fundamentalism, and that means that some regions become so fanatic, so passionate that they are right, that they are willing to die for their specific religion because they feel right, and all other people are wrong. And that's exactly the problem with most religions that create exclusiveness and fundamentalism as a obstruction to development. As we have seen also with the Israel-Hamas conflict, recently we have seen also in Ireland the many years of conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants, and there are many examples of that in history as well, in terms of the Crusades and so forth. Then the other dimension, the one of spirituality, if people are being kept so busy by meeting ends meet in order to survive, that they don't have enough time to think and to reflect. They don't have enough leisure time to be innovative and reflect on themselves and how to improve themselves. Being kept busy by television, mass media, ads on television, in order to entice them to be an ever-consuming society, where people are fed so much information and disinformation that cannot always be verified. Then it's very difficult for people to be grounded and to be mindful and to connect with the inner self and with 5 elements of which a person also represent. And then people are disconnected from society. And in the case of beauty, for example, or inspiration, people lose inspiration. And people can become depressed. And they can also commit suicide as a result of that. So spirituality says that there is a bigger meaning in life, and we are all connected. And if we are isolated, and we can't look beyond ourselves, and we think that death is the end of the world, and there's nothing after death, then we will not have a balance. We will not be able to be mindful of ourselves and other people. So these are some of the obstructions to development. And if these first order obstructions, like in politics that I've mentioned, authoritarianism, in economics that I've mentioned, deprivation, in knowledge exclusion that I've mentioned, for example, that is obsolescence in terms of the spirituality, where people can't connect and are not grounded. For example, when these obstructions of development interact with each other, then you get a serious problem. And that is what we call a second order problem. That means a serious problem that cannot be solved. It cannot be analyzed. It needs to be dissolved, to name it in systemic terms. And this is a much more serious problem that is linked with complexity and corruption being a systemic issue. This concludes then the 6 dimensions of development and the obstructions to development and how it's connected to corruption, because corruption obstructs people from development. And as I've mentioned, there are many co-producers to this obstruction, in which we have looked at. So that concludes, in summary, the 6 dimensions of development of Coetzee, and one that I've added myself in terms of spirituality.